Welcome back to another session, you guys. I am so happy to have Julie here. She is the founder and CEO of InspiredJules. So during my research for this webinar, I looked at Julie's site and she said all these cool handmade stuff, necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and whatnot. And it's all handmade and it's socially conscious and it's women owned. So I am so stoked to be here today with you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
And I'm so interested about this topic as well. When we got talking first, I was telling, I tried Googling, what is e-commerce customer success, and I couldn't find anything. So you guys are going to be the first guys to hear about all this. So we'll do a quick round of introductions. If you guys could say hello and drop in where you are from, that would be great. Yeah. And in the meantime, let me quickly jot down the house rules. So you can use the chat anytime you want. If it's gonna add to the conversation, please feel free to drop it. And if you have any notes or observation, add them. We're all game. And we have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. So keep your notes and pointers ready. So I'm sure Julie will be so happy to answer all those. And session is being recorded and I'll send you a copy as soon as it's done. So we'll get started. So, let's get started with this. Tell us about your brand, InspiredJules.
Yeah, so I think I'll even back up before then because for me, I've always been, I think, had an entrepreneurial spirit. I grew up in a household where my dad was a civil engineer, but he also was an artist. My mom was, I don't even think this is offered as a degree anymore, but she was a home economics teacher. And so we had sewing and crafting and all that kind of stuff going on in my house my entire life. Homemade gifts were always highly valued. And also that's kind of what we did. We always shared ourselves. And so as I got into corporate, I found that I really gravitated. I've done sales, account management, customer success, but I always really gravitated towards the client experience, how people felt. I always wanted to have customers that I continually engaged with. So I was always on the end of, renewals and keeping that customer engagement going. And so when I got to a place where I wanted to do my own brand, this was meant to be a side hustle in the beginning. Because I did have a full-time corporate job at the time. But I really wanted, lean into what I know and kind of who I am, my personal why, because I think that everything we do should, and it is more authentic and better when it revolves around your why. And if you don't know about Simon Sinek, I recommend you look him up. You can learn all about what that means. He's really big at starting with your why. And I think it's a good way to start with any brand building exercise. So InspiredJules takes, handmade. I'm basically making jewelry. I also wanted to have a brand that was a platform to support women. So actually everything that I do is about supporting women. I have women makers that I work with. So I sell other people's jewelry. I sell my own. I have gift items. And then we give back. I give back to an organization in the Seattle area where I'm from in Washington State called Mary's Place, and they help women get out of homelessness. Mm-hmm. I'm also working on expanding, I think, the what that I can do when I have my own business, and that is working with women in college and helping inspire them about the road ahead, because as a woman in business, there's all sorts of things that we've gone through to get to where we are. It's not necessarily easy. And I want to have an opportunity to kind of be the voice to my younger self, which are those girls that are, going to school right now and getting ready to go out into the world, and how they have such an opportunity as women to contribute to society in their careers, engaging around this notion of sisterhood, supporting other women, and all of that. So that's kind of like, that's a lot about my brand. In the end, I am selling jewelry and gift item products, but it's all built around
Now,
inspiration and
looking
supporting
back, I
women.
kind of grossly understated your introduction, right? So,
Oh, no, that's okay. I wanted to give people a little bit more context because we all have a journey that got us to where we are. And I think that's really important because it to me, that's one of the things where you need to start when you talk about what does customer success look like for your brand. So
absolutely, I love it. I love it. I even looked at some of your products and reviews. Of course, not a user myself, but some of the reviews you've got are amazing. So, guys, if you want to check out our site, it's InspiredJules.com. I'll send the link in the chat. So, yeah, before we get to the meat of what I want to talk about, I know that you had a B2B experience for a long time.
yeah.
And how did that transition happen? So what caused that?
Yeah, it's not that unique, unfortunately, because I think I'll just say 2020, and a lot of people go, oh yeah, 2020. So I had a career that I was at a particular technology company working in education, and I had worked there for 10 years. And at the beginning of 2020, they went through a big layoff because we hadn't hit our sales numbers. I was very senior there and was cut. So that was hard for me because I had been there. I was like the 15th employee, and I really helped build a startup. And I felt like it was actually was a good learning experience because falsely, I felt like it was my company in a lot of ways. And it wasn't. In the end, it wasn't. I was disposable. I offered a lot, but it wasn't my company. And so through that experience, and then I actually got a different job during the pandemic, which was another set of experiences. I had already had some of the work for InspiredJules going during that time because, like I had mentioned earlier, I had wanted to have something I could put my creative self into as a side hustle. I really didn't have any intention of it becoming my job because I was used to having a salary. And, so I think, with the layoff and just what we experienced being isolated during the pandemic and that disruption that forced a different train of thought, I made the decision that, I don't know how this will go, but you kind of get one chance in life. And I'm at a place where I believe in myself. I know that I can do things that are hard, and I also know that I have experience that's relevant, and I'm just going to put myself out there. And so that's how I got to the place of starting this company.
I think you've struck the chord with the audience already. I think people are already inspired by Jules now. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so we'll get started with the things that people want to hear. People are here to hear. Yeah. So we'll start with something fundamental and foundational. How do you define customer success?
Yeah. So customer success to me it's essential. But it also applies to all business. So when you mentioned earlier that there's really nothing out there on e-commerce customer success, I just don't think it's been translated yet, but it really is the same for every company. Everybody has a product or service that they're selling, and the ultimate goal is to make that sale. But it's more, you want that customer to come back as well. So you really have to have a customer journey. So to me, customer success is creating an intentional customer journey from the discovery of your brand to the purchase of your brand, and then figuring out how you build loyalty and gain reviews and return customers. So that it takes some brainstorming and some thinking and going back again to what are your brand values and why do you have a brand to begin with? What what makes it special, what makes it unique.
That's a pretty good definition. This webinar series is a result of our customer success initiative. So that's a happy coincidence, I guess.
Yeah.
And it is also something that I kind of feel is grossly misunderstood by a lot of people, because there are a lot of definitions. How you define customer success varies. When you ask a different person. So and one of the common things that it's confused with is customer support, right?
Yep.
So what do you think is the actual distinction between, where do you draw the line? And
Yeah, I love this question. Customer support to me is reactive. It is that thing where someone's, saying help and you react and you're supporting them. Customer success is proactive. And it's really important because in that proactive thinking of the success of a customer, what does that look like? I really just like to use the word experience. What success is typically experience. There's a lot of examples I can share, but I'll just take kind of an easy one. So think about your phone, your mobile phone that's probably attached to your hand right now. If you have exactly right, mine is off to the side, but I'll just use Apple. That's the easiest one. So if I'm having some technical issues with my phone, I'm going to reach out to support. They're going to help me. If I think about customer success, think about how many different phones you've had to get. You need a new version, the iOS changed, whatever it is, you've dropped it, it's broken, whatever the thing is, you go and get a new phone. There's always an experience in that. If you're an Apple customer, it's an experience. And it's not like it's the 5th phone I've purchased, here's your phone. It's like, no, you actually are going to get that experience around it. That creates customer success. I feel good. It's a feeling, I think, too, right? It's a whole experience and feeling that you get. So that's the difference to me. It's the reactive support versus which I sometimes think of from a corporate standpoint of like a help desk. It's, you're responding to an email, you're responding to a call, you're maybe responding to a bad review that you got, versus the customer success is the very thoughtful thing that aligns with your brand. That's proactive.
So, I know you said you like Simon Sinek's work, The Golden Circle. So, and he has this format, right? Like the why, how, what, if I'm not wrong. So,
Yeah.
Do you have a similar framework for, customer success?
Yeah, kind of, I do. So obviously I already mentioned I do start with the why. I think that's really important. That's your brand. That's the why. I also want to know who's my ideal customer. And that's an exercise that is actually quite hard to do. Who is your ideal customer? Then, what kind of customer experience do I want them to have? What do I think will build loyalty and make them a raving fan? Then I know that I need to have frameworks and systems in place to help me have systems to support my process with the work that I do. Then I also think about visibility. As an e-commerce, visibility can be very hard. As a small business, it's extremely hard. So what are my opportunities for visibility that are cost effective? And then you got to have a sales strategy. So that's kind of my overall framework that I approach my business with.
So, when you started InspiredJules, was customer success right at the top of your mind? That was one of the first things that you wanted to get sorted, as opposed to, typically people focus on the product or marketing or sales. So
yeah, actually, the first thing I focused on was actually that what's the customer experience? I had an idea. So I'll tell you, I mean, some people might think this is crazy, but I had an idea of what I wanted to offer, but I wasn't 100% sure yet. So the first thing I did was I knew, I mean, I'm pretty creative, but I don't have also, let's just face it, sometimes we get in this mode of like, I have to do all the things. Like
Mhm.
I have to come up with a creative idea. I need to do all this work. And as a solopreneur, or maybe you've got a couple people working with you, you just have to invest in yourself and sometimes just determine like, I'm going to make this investment. Hopefully it will pay off. But so I invested in someone to help me with my brand,
Mhm.
with my branding and with my website. So she did both. It was a long process of going through my whys, talking about who at that time I thought my ideal customer profile was, when I actually wasn't quite sure exactly what I was going to sell. So a little bit was, kind of had to go back and forth and refine this a bit, but I did start with what with brand is experience. It's that customer experience. So the brand was the first thing that I really worked on. While she was doing that and refining that, then I was figuring out exactly, you know, my values mission around women, supporting women. What does that look like? Then I started reaching out to metalsmiths and jewelers in my area, small business people that really were makers that didn't necessarily know a lot about business, because felt like I could help them in that way. So yeah, but that's where I started, was my brand.
Well, I think it's amazing, right? It's kind of like how the high tide raises all ships.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and um, you know, when you started out, did you face any challenges? From a customer success point of view, were there any challenges that you had to break through in the beginning?
I, I mean, those people watching could probably totally understand this. The biggest challenge is finding your customers, getting eyes on your brand. It is that to me has probably been, I didn't know how hard that would be, because I came into this knowing I have a certain set of skills and I'm good at that. Like I have great customer service. I can offer a great experience. I've got sales experience. I've got all these things, even some marketing. But if you don't have the customers, you can't, implement any of that. So to me, that was the most difficult thing and very humbling. And still to this day can be the one thing that I get hung up on, as far as, do I keep going? Because you are literally a little teeny tiny star in the universe as an e-commerce store. And during the pandemic, I think there was a window of time where if you had good visibility through some of the social media channels, people found you.
Mm.
And it was kind of, we were all on our, kind of looking for that human interaction. And there were ways that people were found. And I know some really small brands that blew up and are almost, $500,000 brands literally 2 years later. So it's hard to say, was that like a special window of time, or how does this look going forward? But finding customers to me is probably the most difficult.
Mhm. Michelle from our audience totally relates to that. So she says that's one thing that she's struggling with as well. And I just want to say this, Michelle, and I hope you agree. It's I think it's the first 50, 100 sales that is what is the most difficult thing. And after that, it's a flywheel. The you're gonna get the next 100 customers in half the time, and the next 1,000 in less than half the time. So.
Yeah, I definitely am a student, and so I have joined different groups and found places where I'm, have kind of a community of other people in my similar stage of business, just because you need that reinforcement of, hey, if you're building something from scratch, there's always going to be the 1% that just knocks it out of the park, and for whatever reason, they have really fast growth. And then the rest of us, it's probably going to take 1 to 3 years or 1 to 5 years to, as you mentioned, you start to build that customer base. And then you get that compound effect and the word of mouth, or, you show up more often in Google searches or whatever it is. So yeah, it's I don't know, stick with it. I mean, you definitely, I think that in this business of e-commerce, it's really good to have a community around you of people that understand. I know I work out of my house and it's just me. And so as the world has opened up, I've found, what are other sales opportunities that I have as an e-commerce business. And so I've found myself going out to, in-person events. Like I got a tent and I'm doing markets, and I was like, this isn't exactly what I thought I was going to be doing, but I've decided this year I'm going to lean into my community where I live and meet people, because I know that creates customer success as well, that we're back to that human touch again. And it makes a big difference. So anyway,
I, I love it. And speaking about community, so do you is it like a physical place where you guys meet up, or is it some kind of online community, and what do you guys share? Do you guys talk about customer success there?
Yeah, I have an online community, and actually it's not about customer success. It's really about being a product boss. Facebook, there's a lot of Facebook communities out there, and that's one of them that I'm in. But I will say what I've started locally is working with trying to build a network of small businesses in our area, because I just, I'm a huge advocate of community over competition. And in this e-commerce space, I think we're all better together. There's going to be, I mean, my gosh, I'm selling jewelry. Jewelry is saturated. It's everywhere. Like, how in the world do you get seen as a little brand when there's all these big brand names out there, or there's another e-commerce business that already has like the attention of most people online? So I think that, learning from each other and also building a network that's nearby is really helpful. And so that's one of the things. We did a local event for, Galentine's Day, which is a made-up holiday, but it's right before Valentine's Day. And we brought together a bunch of women, small business owners in our community, and our town actually helped sponsor it and gave us a building to meet in. And then we sent invites out to women in our community. And so, but it was, I think, more than the opportunity we had to sell, the opportunity we had to connect, and just like we were doing today, that aha moment of like, oh, we're kind of all experiencing similar things. And wow, what if we lift each other up instead of like feeling isolated, or feeling like when you're in business, it's all about competition. So anyway, that's kind of how I've evolved my thinking.
Right.
Like, what are some other ways that I can get out there?
You just need enough people believing in your vibe, right? And you got yourself a community.
Yeah.
And hopefully
Yeah.
customers as well.
Yeah.
So, so speaking about actionable advisors, so where does one start? If let's say I'm a boutique, I wanna get started with customer success. What is the first thing that I need to do? We talked about customers, and from an execution standpoint, what is the first thing that I should be doing?
Yeah. So definitely, I think about your brand. There's a lot of areas that you can look at to see where do I need to improve. I am a very detailed person. I think it's good to be very detail oriented when you're running a business, and also don't feel like things are one and done. It should evolve. You should be able to pivot, be adaptive when things don't work. So I really believe in test and try. So, how's your brand look today? What is your branding? What's your messaging? How are you distributing your product? Is it working? What's working? What's not working? stop what's not working and focus on what is working. That is the number one thing. I think when it comes to products, a lot of times as e-commerce businesses, we feel like, oh, I just need to make a bunch. I need to do a whole bunch of different things. And again, it's like, well, what's really selling? What's resonating with customers? And start focusing in on some of those things, and think about the outcomes, and then work your way backwards. So I'm a big fan of, like, I like to structure, you've got, think about what your goal is for the year, but that can be a bit overwhelming, but you do need to have that. And then break it down into 90-day roadmaps and chunks and quarters, however you want to say it. And then from there, it's like, what's your sales strategy? Sales strategy should always be married with, what does the customer success and experience look like connected to that? And then it's a monthly strategy around, how am I going to show up? What am I going to send for customer emails? How am I going to build my email list? Am I going to invest in marketing, or what can I do organically? That sort of thing.
So, and was there some milestone or some metric of sort that made you realize that customer success actually moved the needle here? You could probably bring up examples from InspiredJules. I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I decided from a customer success standpoint that, just based on, I think, my previous experience in other corporate jobs, experience matters. So, when it comes to shopping, I think everyone will agree there's a really big company out there that has made shopping, I would say, quick and mindless. You can get whatever you need really quickly. It comes to you, and you just, it's a little bit mindless. It's like, I need this thing, I got it, great. And you move on, and you don't even know who it came from, except the big company. So I actually have an example I want to show you. So when I thought about experience for InspiredJules, I have a product I'm sending in the mail. And typically this is what we receive when we order something. And if you're buying jewelry, typically you open this package and you end up with something like this. So that is experience that I've had, even when I've spent, $100 on something. That's how it shows up. And I'm kind of disappointed about that, but I'm also like, well, that's kind of the world that we live in right now. So for InspiredJules, one of my hypotheses was that if I offered a different experience, I would see retention of customers and repeat customers, good reviews, and hopefully some word of mouth. So I decided to spend the time, and I have packaging that looks like this. So when somebody gets this in the mail, it's not an envelope, which is the typical thing, or a plastic sleeve. I wanted to make sure that I have something that's environmentally conscious, that's recyclable, and different, right? So you get that in the mail and you're like, whoa, that's different. Then you open it up and hey, there's my brand. That's different. And I have, as a thank you, a small business card information. And then I have information about my brand, and that the person buying this or gifting it is part of the ripple effect of positive impact on others. And then I have a little bit of story, and then I can offer QR codes so that they can pass on a discount to somebody else or receive one. So this was, let's say, like, if you're e-commerce and you're sending out a product, you are going to pay for the way you ship it. You're going to pay for the packaging. So from a customer success standpoint, I decided I can pretty much spend the same. And I designed my own packaging and worked with a company that made it for me. And so that's one of the ways that I have actually seen my brand I won't say take off because, let's be real, but it has, I have definitely created loyal fans. I hear back from almost, oh my gosh, probably at least 60% of my customers that say, wow, that was so cool. I felt like I got a gift. It wasn't like I just ordered something and I got the product. I felt something when I opened it, and
Like,
wow, that was so cool.
exactly right. Like when the package popped up on the screen, I was like, oh my god, that doesn't look like a package.
That's right.
It looks like a gift. It looks like someone I knew, someone I trust and love. They sent me this. That's the kind of
Yeah.
vibe that it gives me.
Yeah.
It's
And that's
amazing.
right. And
And the things that you carefully put inside the package, that's also so good. It works on multiple fronts, right? From spreading the word to make a purchase again. That's so
mhm.
cool. Love it.
Yeah. So I think, whether you are, what doesn't matter what you're selling. Again, it's go back to like, why are you doing what you're doing? And can you put a little bit of yourself into it, humanize the experience a little bit more, make it special. Um, and it can make a big difference.
I
And it
think
doesn't necessarily have to be a big cost.
this is where brands can get really creative, right? Like
Mhm.
you can translate your brand's why to this. And you were speaking about the whole packaging thing, and you had a very interesting choice of words. You said hypothesis. So I just want to ask you, do you test this out multiple times? Does this work, or should I try a different thing? Do you test it?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So when it comes to packaging, it could be really expensive to just buy a few and test it out. For me, I think because of my experience in customer success and just what I know, I knew it would work. So, but let's just say, and so far it is working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think my only worry about the packaging initially is because I am shipping jewelry and something that's delicate, and I don't want it to get crushed in the mail. But that was also, I got lots of samples of the product before and did some testing on that before I committed. But um, I felt, there's definitely going to be things that I do that show, they don't have the results that I'd hoped for. But to me, even if, and yeah, I don't know. I just felt like this was a no fail because even if I didn't see uh, the excitement around it, growth of customers from it, return customers from it, I'm giving the experience that I want to give for my brand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so far it's been received positively, and it has helped my brand grow.
Yeah. Obviously, because who's gonna not love this?
It's
So
it's unexpected, and I'll just say, like, the word I love for e-commerce is disrupt.
mhm. And
Like, you have to find ways to disrupt. And I think, like, with something even like packaging, I'm disrupting what's happening right now as just kind of that mindless, I got something in the mail, I'm opening it, great, I got something. um how can you disrupt and not, customer success is like, e-commerce it's out there in the ether, it's virtual, and how do you bring it in and make it a real experience? Got to think outside the box.
mhm.
And not everybody can do that. That's actually why I do consulting, because I help others with that. But um, putting yourself in other people's shoes, becoming the customer for your own brand,
Mhm.
send yourself that email. What are the communications that you have right now? Write them all out. Does it make sense? Do you like how that sounds? How does it resonate if you're the person receiving it? I think it's just what you have to do. We can kind of get in this mindset of, I have to sell, I have to sell, I have to sell, I have to make money. And you have to set aside intentional time to think about okay, what is the experience people are giving? And is this one where I'm inviting them in to my business? I'm, building my product up. It sounds exciting. Is there a need for what I'm selling? Am I presenting that need and how I'm solving the customer's problem in a way that makes sense? All of those things are really important.
100%. And you did really put out a very important point. Send out that email that you want to receive. So
Mhm.
I you know I like to call that the empathetic walkthrough.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
when, we do websites or the product itself, you know, create a new store, uh, you know, click on that link, uh, fill that form out, and no shortcuts there. And I think that's something that, more often than not, it applies to e-commerce so much
Oh,
it makes so much.
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and we talked about do you have apart from, we talked about a few metrics, right, to measure the success of customer success, customer loyalty, retention, and do you have other metrics that you feel, these are a few things that store has to measure, just to make sure that things are going the right track?
Yeah. So I'll repeat some of them just because I think it's worth repeating. So I try to keep it simple because if you have too many goals, you can't hit them all. So I like to keep it around 4. So my current 4 are a sales goal, my customer list, email subscribers, because those two things can be different, and then customer reviews. So those are the things that I have goals on and numbers associated with. And with that, then I want to look at those, sometimes I look at them monthly, definitely look at them quarterly and figure out, you know, am I hitting things? If I set my bar too low on one of the numbers, like, ooh, well then push that one. And like, how can I, especially when we think about reviews, um, people don't like to take the time to write reviews, but as an e-commerce store, reviews are everything. Think about, when you shop for something online, I know that I do. I always see what has the highest review. And then I read some of those reviews. I usually start with like, what are the worst reviews?
Mhm.
Because I want to know potentially what's the worst thing that can happen if I order this. But I always start with like, which thing has the highest review of the type of item I'm trying to order. So I'm going to reach out to, this is something for this quarter that I'm working on, is reaching out to every customer that has purchased from me and ask for a review. And it's going to take some time because I'm going to do a personal email. But I can probably get a template together pretty quick. That sounds personal and I'll use that. But that kind of thing is really important. So yeah, those kind of metrics to me make sense for
Mhm.
e-commerce as my business evolves, and those will change. I'm looking into getting into wholesale. So probably next quarter, I'll have some wholesale goals as well. But yeah.
And from the chat, I could see that a lot of the folks here, they are starting out. So, um, what is one thing that you would like to tell them, or in a way, what would you tell uh, younger Julie
Mm,
about?
yeah. Um, hmm. First of all, I would say don't give up. Um, you're inspired to do something right now, and write down what that inspiration is. Have it as a post-it note that sits by your desk that, in the worst of times when you just feel like it's not worth it, it's easier to go work for somebody else. Get back to why you wanted to do this. And then ask for help. And when I say ask for help, it doesn't mean that you need to actually like call a friend. Not everybody's going to understand unless they're in the type of business that you are, but there are all sorts of resources. So I think most of us here are using Shopify, and Shopify, the thing I really like about that platform is there's a lot of different apps that you can use to help get what you need. And so I think that's the thing too. Just don't get stuck. Just continue to evolve. That's really important.
Mhm.
It's not always going to be great. It's going to be really hard at times, but it's all part of the journey, right?
Uh, this has been quite an interesting discussion, eye-opening of sorts. So I think we can move on to the Q&A session
Yeah, that'd be great.
if you have time. Yeah. So guys, feel free to drop in the questions. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I see somebody's 20 and eager to learn about CS. I mean, as you guys are dropping in questions, I'll just say I'm not 20. You probably figured that out. I am in my early 50s, and I think there's such an opportunity. There's an opportunity for everyone. I mean, that's why I'm doing it now. But there's definitely an opportunity for younger people to, this wave is just starting. Like if you get in now and you start to figure things out, there's so much possibility and opportunity. I'm really excited. I have 2 kids and one of them is in college right now. And I'm just so excited for the things that are possible,
Mhm.
that haven't even surfaced yet. It's pretty exciting. Technology is
So
pretty awesome.
while the questions fill in, I just wanna, something that I wanted to ask you earlier, and I kind of forgot, kind of slipped my mind. So, you kind of showed us what really good customer success is. Designing that customer experience, right,
Mhm.
in packaging. So, what other areas, probably in the product itself or the website checkout experience? Um, do you have any tips there, or examples? And I know you're gonna pull one right out of your hat like a magician and shows all.
Um, so actually, can you rephrase that one more time?
Um, so we talked about good customer success experience in packaging.
Yeah.
What are other areas?
Mm,
The website experience for example.
yeah. Yep. Yep. Um, so I think it helps to start with a framework. And again, this is the customer journey.
Mhm.
So how I would really start, and packaging was just to me almost like one of the outcomes. It's kind of like the end game. But and I'm a big fan of writing these things down, because it's that kinetic connection between your thought and this potential idea. But you basically write down, how do you get discovered? Like, so think about a customer and it's your ideal customer profile and they're coming in and discovering you.
Mhm.
And you can break up the journey into pre-sale, which is the discovery,
Mhm.
point of sale, post-sale, and then like repeat business. And within each of those categories, what is what does success look like? And so the discovery could be, what does my visibility look like? How do I get out there? And maybe one approach is, well, I'm going to lean into social media because that's where a lot of brands get discovered. What does that look like for me? Is it I'm on every social platform? I can tell you that's probably going to be hard. Am I going to lean into Instagram, or am I going to go TikTok? What does that look like? And so that, and then I think a very important thing to think about is, once you get that customer to purchase, the post sale experience around customer success is extremely important. How have you thanked somebody for their purchase?
Mhm.
Do you have an email series that goes back to that customer to say thank you? maybe you're offering them, you don't always have to offer a discount, but how can you incentivize them to share your brand with others? How can you get them to, if they bought from you but didn't actually subscribe to your email list, how can you get them to subscribe? Because one of the most important things I think in e-commerce is not only, having a customer journey and thinking about customer success, but like what part of it do you kind of own? And really it's those email subscribers, that is your list. If you're on a social platform, that's not your platform. That's not your list. Those are people that are interested, but you don't have them hooked until they become an email subscriber. So I think it's really thinking about, utilizing the knowledge that you have built into Shopify, your dashboard. I actually have the basic package of Shopify because that's just where I am in my business right now, but it does tell me who my customers are, and actually of those customers who are subscribers. But I think that's really, that you kind of have to build on that.
Absolutely. What you said, like, only when you have an email, they are actually your audience, right? So same thing with app users as well. So recently there was a Facebook outage, and some of the communities that we are actively in, a lot of people said, we were not able to do live sales. Like that kind of is that audience even yours? Actually, when an algorithm change can take that
Yeah.
away, right?
Yeah.
So and
It's hard.
yeah.
It's kind of, as an e-commerce business, you have to, it's expected. The customer expects that you have a social presence. But I think it's really important to determine how much time are you going to spend on that social platform, because you don't work for them. You want it to work for you, but you don't want to get sucked into a point where you spend hours a day on a social platform, because that doesn't always equal sales. There's some companies that they do a lot of selling on social platforms, but I would think the majority of them actually don't. So it's that visibility piece. How can you leverage it for that? And at least just when consumers are checking you out as a brand, a lot of times they'll go to a social and see if you're there. And if you're not, that's going to hurt you. If you don't have updated information, that might hurt you. It's just that, like, I don't know, that's a validation that customers go through these days to see if you're on social.
100%. And we have a question from the audience. Like Baron says, what's the best way to advertise jewelry? So probably you can share some of the tips that you used.
Is this the question from Michelle? The best way to market the
There is
app?
one in the chat.
The best way to advertise for jewelry.
I know, not really the point of, but in a sense, you do have a jewelry business, and probably you could help Baron with some of the
The best way to advertise. Advertising is tricky. I will say that this is, again, you need to kind of test and try. I am of a, organic growth is slow and steady, but also it's cost effective. So I actually try to advertise via my email list. Those are the email campaigns that I send out. Also, I use Instagram. I was on TikTok for a while, but that platform just wasn't working for me. There's a lot going on over there. But I make a point of, kind of utilizing that platform in a way that I can share stories, do reels, things that hopefully get a little bit of traction. And I did decide, it was like mid-January through mid-February, I invested in some Facebook ads, which went across Facebook and Instagram. And I did it knowing that I might be wasting my money at this point, but hoping that it gained some visibility to my brand. And it was around a very specific product and that I was selling. and for around Valentine's Day. And so I had some analytics for that, but so I'm not sure if I'll do that again. It was expensive, but maybe I'll do it again because I do think I got new customers from that. And again, I believe that once I get a customer and I put them through my customer success and experience, they'll tell somebody and they'll also come back. So advertising is tricky. Also, I'll say, if you don't think about advertising as much and think about where am I selling? We're all selling from our website. What other channels are there that we could possibly sell from? Because most $1 million businesses have at least 7 different channels that they're selling from. You know, seven different investments, you could say. So what are some of the big platforms? I'm not on Etsy, but a lot of people go to Etsy. Can you sell your items wholesale? That's one of the places that I'm going into. Can you sell your items in person? So, you know, depending on what you're selling, what are the different channels that you might possibly have?
And Michelle wants to know what is the best way to market her mobile app to her current customer base.
That might be more of a question for you.
I guess so. We do have a whole different webinar, an ebook. I can send that to you later, Michelle. So probably you can drop in your email ID so that I'll make sure that I send it to you.
And just speaking about like your current customer base, so you're talking about like if you have an app now for your business, not just your website. I think it applies to anything. Let's say that you've got a new product or something that you want to share. I think with your current customer base, again, it goes back to what is your email cadence? What is the communication with them? It's good to not always be selling, but sprinkle in a bit about what's new from a standpoint of like discovery, perhaps, or even a little bit about yourself that people might not know. Again, trying to humanize the shopping experience. And people like to buy from people, and people love stories. So, how can you even weave in, I think storytelling is an art and it can be kind of hard, but like if you want to market that you're now using an app as well as your website, what's a story about that? Why would you be doing that? And create an interesting story about visibility. And I think that then an email to your customer. Also, if you're on social, that's a great thing to, talk about. I've leveled up, or I've done this thing, and like, hey, I'm on an app. Like, look at me, I've evolved. I think that you can do a lot of fun, creative things like that. It's not always easy to be the face of your brand. I'll say I don't love it, especially because I'm not in my 20s or 30s. But you can get help, or you can just show your product and still have voiceovers and things that kind of get the message out. So those are just some ideas, I think, for sharing to your current customer base or potential customers, because some people might not want to sign up for your email list, but they would love it if you had an app and they might download that, or maybe they just like text messaging and they would sign up for that. So I think e-commerce, remember, you're a star in the universe. You have to tell people repeatedly what you want them to hear. You have to pull them into your customer journey in order for you to be successful and for them to be a customer.
And Michelle, you could take one page of Julie's, when you send your package to people, just like how Julie did the QR code, you could, add a QR code to your mobile app. That is one thing that you can do here. And the other thing I would say is, put out a dedicated page or a section at the very least inside your website where everyone can see that you have a mobile app, because if you're not going to shout that out loud, no one is going to hear it. So, and the ebook that I'm going to send you is it's gonna have a lot more tips, something that you could start doing immediately, and it's going to be super cost effective as well. So yeah, we don't have I think we don't have any more questions. So, and it's time as well, so we have like 5 minutes left. So any parting words, or should we just peace out?
Well, I'll just say, you know, you found this discussion through LinkedIn probably, and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I'm not lying when I say that community is really important to me. So obviously I offer consulting, but I'm open if you have other questions and you want to DM me.
Mhm.
I am happy to talk to you, because e-commerce can be a lonely business sometimes. So I'm happy to help. And this has been a really fun opportunity for me. We all have a story to tell. We all have a journey. And I think it's just helpful to remind ourselves that there's a person behind every business. And especially when it comes to small businesses, we're all in this together.
100%. So you've been very generous with your time and insights, Julie. You've been, this was an amazing conversation,
Great.
and you guys have been an amazing audience as well. So I'll send you more information about finding the Julie's contact, her LinkedIn. So just in case you want to connect with her in a follow-up email, I'll send you the recording. I'll send the recording to you as well, Julie. So
Perfect.
all right, so you guys have a wonderful day ahead. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining.